Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today on this Friday brought to you by, that includes Thomas Drance, standing by, the Whistler Golf Club, whistlergolf.com. Imagine being up there golfing this weekend.
Oh.
It's supposed to be nice, right?
Are you kidding? It's going to be beautiful. Big Al.
Chris Manson. Okay. Thomas Drance joining us now from The Athletic on his way to Nashville for the NHL entry draft next week. Thomas, thanks for doing this. Busy guy. How are you?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Are you one of these people who love going to Nashville?
I'm a big Nashville guy, especially when I spent a few years in Miami. Nashville was like a weekend trip. You know, you could do it up and back. I've been many times. I've had a great time. I look forward to having a great time, although it's going to be all business, boys, all business next week.
Always.
Okay,
Off the draft for a second, your opinion of the NHL's decision to do away with cause-themed warm-up jerseys.
It's small. It's a small decision. It's a small decision not befitting a billion-dollar sports enterprise like the NHL. You think about the fact that they're undoing all of them. And I think about, Jay Ojik's wonderful design on the Canucks First Nations night practice jersey this year. I think about how much it meant to Brock Besser, and we all saw how much it meant to Brock Besser to wear the Hockey Fights cancer jersey that night that he was almost scratched. These are, logos that I see around town a lot. The Canucks in particular, and to their credit, have done a fabulous job with Diwali night jerseys and Lunar New Year jerseys. They've really come up with some beautiful designs. I see fans wearing that gear all the time. So this is an initiative that across the board jukes jersey sales, resonates with players, helps juke ticket sales is a useful marketing promotion for these theme nights, which the NHL is making a big deal of. Hey, they'll still exist, but without their centerpiece, right? The centerpiece is always the players wearing the sweater, the visual, the images of guys wearing those jerseys, identifying in a specific and actually pretty intimate way too with various groups. To lose all of that to do what? To protect maybe 2 dozen NHL players from having to grapple with complexity and maybe take a few, barbs of criticism on Twitter. That to me doesn't feel like business leadership, gentlemen. That feels exceptionally small. This is the sort of initiative for the league that's been an easy win on every front: PR, marketing, sales, and, a little bit of effort might have been put into educating or even improving it, right? One thing is these logos are beautiful and then they sort of get slapped on a practice jersey. To me, this is one of those low-hanging fruit promotions that the league could have put some thought into improving and maybe escalating. Instead, it's getting shut down over, some, and I don't want to minimize the negative attention the league got. It was substantive negative attention, but it just feels like a small decision to prioritize sort of protecting a small group as opposed to leveraging something that's already been wildly successful in so many of the NHL's markets to further grow the game and connect with fans. Classic NHL, deeply disappointed.
Yeah, a small group, Thomas, but I think indirectly what happened last year increased awareness for the various causes. So there's that.
Good point.
Turning the page here, tough turn. And I know you're going to the draft. I know we were talking about the jerseys and all of that. But I heard you talking over the last couple of weeks, talking about how the Canucks should seriously think about Noah Jolson playing alongside Quinn Hughes. I'll let you go.
Well, he had success there. That was a really good pair. They didn't have a long run because Jolson unfortunately got hurt. But after Rick Tocchet took over and Jolson took that spot, I really liked that pair. I thought they played well. I thought Jolson played well. Honestly, I thought he was pretty good too in the 5 or 6 games he got under Bruce Boudreau last season. He had sort of one tough game, and it seemed like he lost his spot in the lineup. But there's a lot to like there. There's a big athletic frame. He's got good feet. I like his game a fair bit as a Hughes caddy, and we've seen that Hughes can carry a pair. Patrick Alvin discussing with the media, the likelihood that if the Canucks can get one top 4 caliber defenseman, that might be all that's realistic for them to add this offseason. That means you're going to be counting on one of Hughes or Hronek to drive their own pair. We've seen Hughes do it successfully. I don't know that Hronek's done it successfully at this point in his NHL career. So for me, you'd prioritize the second pair lefty spot and trust Hughes to, elevate whatever player you're able to give him. If that's Noah Jolson, still unsigned, of course, pending Group 6 UFA, but Alvin, in name dropping him on Wednesday, clearly indicated his confidence that the club will get it done. That to me is a decent fit. Like, if you're going to roll the dice on a player who can maybe play higher up the lineup than we might envision when writing the defensive pairs down on paper, to me, he seems like a pretty straightforward bet to provide more value than you'd think, especially if he's deployed in a certain way and with a certain player, that player, of course, being Hughes.
Thomas, a lot of intrigue and mystery with the Russians for this draft. We're talking about Simashev and Michkov. Yeah. We believe that the Canucks like both players.
They should. They're both good players.
Yeah, but Thomas, some teams, like I was told this morning, some teams are not touching the Russians because there's the uncertainty. Some teams are. So, what are your thoughts on these 2 Russian players in the draft?
Good luck handicapping it, right? I was sort of reaching out in the wake of our reporting on, was it Tuesday night, Rick? And just reaching out to a variety of scouting contacts throughout the industry. There's a lot of conjecture about which teams like Michkov, which don't. Here's sort of the prevailing thought, though, is if you are a team that likes Michkov, whether you're sitting at 11, sitting higher in the order, you best have done your homework, because no one has a really good sense of where this guy is going to end up being taken. There is a real shot that he slides out of the top 10. And if he does, the fact that the Canucks have done the work, the fact that they seem to be among those teams that would consider, rolling that particular set of die, that's good, because there is absolutely a world where it plays out in such a way where a player, almost consensus, second most skilled offensive guy in this draft class, does slip out of the top 10 and could be available to a team in the Canucks slot, having done the work to be prepared to consider that possibility and its ramifications. That's necessary work for a team like the Canucks, because I really think this one is as mysterious and tough to put your finger on as any draft situation I can remember. As for Simashev, I really do think there's an argument that he might be the best defensive prospect in this draft, and that's mostly based off of my conversations with a variety of scouts across the industry, some of whom specialize or work with scouting Russian players. The 6'4", 200-pound thing is what jumps off the page, but that's not what sort of separates him, in my view. It's that he's got that package and he's got the skills, like he's got the deceptive offensive skills, the shot, the creativity from the back end. That to me gives him a little bit more upside than some of the other defenders who I think are likely to be a little bit overdrafted in this class, simply because they're right-handed. And there just aren't many that really warrant sort of top 15 consideration in this draft class. I think Simashev's one of them, and that's a very interesting player. Teams in the past, when uncertainty out of Russia, and we've seen it sort of be cyclical in the NHL over the past 2 decades, the teams that have been willing to mine that particular sort of talent pool have sometimes done well. So if there is uncertainty, a lack of viewings, contractual situations that have caused teams to be queasy, that cause some of these players to fall further down the draft order than they maybe should on true talent, to me, that screams opportunity. And the fact that the Canucks don't seem to be frightened of potentially dipping their line into that pond, I think that's a very good sign. Something Canucks fans should be excited about going into next week in Nashville.
Okay, July 1st, we're starting to hear some names. Possible targets for the Canucks on July 1st. We know they're looking for a defenseman. We know they're looking for a third-line center. Is there a deal on July 1st that makes a ton of sense for the Canucks in your eyes, Thomas?
There are very rarely deals on July 1st that make a ton of sense for teams in general, right? The old saw is it's not whether you'll overpay on July 1st, it's by how much. So in terms of July 1, Rick, if you're asking me to assess the field, I mostly see landmines. It's a really tough market to play in. I really think that the Canucks may want to consider seeing if there are value buys to be had on the trade market ahead of the draft. I even think about a variety of players who are on teams that have some cap issues with far less term than it's going to cost to pursue the top names on free agency. My view of it is just like, if a guy like a Carson Soucy, who I like, really good player, really good defensively, really good at defending the neutral zone, right? Like good at surfing, pinching on the blue line. And he's got a big shot. Like there's a lot to like there, 6'5", on and on. If that guy's going to come attached to 4 years of term, are you not better off finding a way to make, the Oliver Bjorkstrand style trade for a Derek Forbert, Cody Ceci class of player on a team that might be willing to move them for the cap flexibility it entails. And it's the same with centermen. I mean, you look up and down this list of centermen, and aside from, Detroit Red Wings third line center Pius Suter, who I think is going to be, I think he's going to probably get way more than people expect, given that he's a credible top 9 guy and pretty good defensively and helps on the PK. But I mean, you're talking your JT Compher class or your Ryan O'Reilly class players. I mean, you're talking $5+ million with term for guys that I'm not sure move the needle 5-on-5 anymore. And then, you're talking about a bunch of guys, your Barbashev, Evan Rodriguez tier, Rick, and those guys aren't real centermen, right? They're wingers who can play center, which is fine, but it's not what the Canucks need. The Canucks need like a linchpin defensive center. I don't know that I really see that available on July 1. I certainly don't see that available on July 1 at a number and term that I think will make sense for where this team's at. So, July 1, what's my best advice to the Canucks and 31 other teams about July 1? Put your phone away, wait till July 2nd, and then make your moves.
You're off to Nashville. What's the best NHL road city?
Oh man, Nashville's up there. Up there. I'm look, Nashville, New York, Chicago. Like, I don't think people would be surprised. And then I will say this too: there is always something about covering a game in Montreal.
Yes,
right. There's something, and like I like to try and take the train in, because so often the Canucks will be playing in Ottawa or Toronto prior. I like to take the train in just to pretend I'm like a 1960s reporter. Get in, eat some brisket in the morning. Fedora. But there's something classy about covering a game in Montreal. Something romantic for any Canadian boy my age, anyway. I love Montreal. That's my short list: Montreal, Chicago, New York, and then I'll throw in Nashville. And I'd say that's my top 4. But I can't wait to get to Nashville. Great vibes in that city, great music, a great time, and to have the whole hockey world converging on it all at once next week. I'd say it's going to be a blast, gentlemen.
We agree on those 4. Thomas, thanks for this. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, boys. Enjoy your weekend.